There's a tendency from the conservative side to skew away from sort of objective fact. I mentioned the MIT living wage calculator, right?
Yes.
That's a scientific model.
Wow.
That 29.25. So as a company, if you can't afford to pay your employee a living wage, that's just the minimum that they need in order to live, right? Get the out of business.
Why are we even talking to you when you have all the facts and we don't know anything?
I don't know.
It's hardly worth my time.
Well, we would, sure.
Good Lord. You might not want to admit it, but you've probably made this exact mistake before without even realizing it. Hi, my name is Harper. I help new leftists get educated and organized. But before that, I was a competitive debater for 4 years. And I built an audience of over 100,000 people using the approach I'm about to share with you. So without further ado, I want to break down this Jubilee video and just kind of talk about some of the most common communication mistakes that I see leftists make and how you can fix them. Let's get into it.
We actually aren't looking for a middle ground with capitalism. We're not looking for a lighter, gentler oppression, exploitation, racism. We are seeking revolution.
Most leftists will see no problem with what he just said, and that is exactly why we fail to reach normal people. If you're just approaching the conversation from a purely logical debate bro framework, you're not going to see any problem with what he said, because what he said was factually accurate. That is what socialists want, a fundamental transformation of society. But in the long run, I'm telling you, what you say is way less important than how you say it. Hold on just a sec. I got to go get something. All right. The old Lego set. Here's the first thing I need to drill into your head. This is them. This is you. If you're approaching the conversation from a place of smugness and feeling superior, how do you think that's going to make them feel? Let me put it another way. If this was you and somebody talked to you like that, do you think you'd be willing to change your position? Probably not. A lot of this comes down to like tone. It's indicative of an underlying mindset. The major problem that I see with a lot of people on the left is a total lack of humility. You may have read a lot. You're very educated, I'm sure. You're a smart cookie. It's awesome to be principled. It's awesome to really believe in something. That's not what I mean, though. What I mean is you need to treat other people as if their ideas and opinions and their thoughts matter, and as if they are as invested in what they believe as you are. Okay, maybe they're not educated, they're victims of propaganda, whatever. That can all be true, but that doesn't absolve you of your responsibility to meet them where they're at. Most leftists don't want to hear this because they're stuck in that logical frame of mind. And having that approach actually allows us to like totally ignore the other person we're talking to. We think if we just come up with the right logical syllogism, then we're just entitled to change their mind. We are entitled to win. So if you came into this video hoping to get a quick little nugget that you can use to epically own your resistance lib mom or your MAGA uncle, forget about it. This isn't about scoring points. It's about changing minds.
I think competition brings out the best in people.
Especially when, we're competing for something like, let's try to create this compound that could help, the masses in some kind of health relation form. You have all these research labs trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to figure out this process? What's the most efficient way to do this? I think we need more of that sort of sense of competition, especially in the sciences and whatnot.
The thing that I'm kind of struggling with, if we're talking about efficiency, quality, then yeah, I think it brings out the best in people. But then again, it tends to bring about greed.
Y'all do such a great service. It's a trip to me because, as you're likely aware, that there's this growing support for socialism, an economic system that places people over profit, that you're willing to continue to throw out the same talking points that have failed people so miserably. Again, it's a benefit to us, and I guess we should say thank you.
Nice.
Okay, if you can't tell already, this video is basically just gonna be me hating on Mimi. So if you're watching this, bro, I apologize. I just think it's important to kind of like understand what works and what doesn't, because respectfully, this is not working. Here's one critical distinction that I need you to be able to make. The difference between a good faith discussion and a bad faith discussion. These people came in wanting to have a discussion. They wanted to share their perspective. In fact, Jack was even willing to question his own perspective and concede the point. Clearly, they're trying to build a bridge, or at least they're open to that connection. And what do? You you smash it. When someone shares their perspective, especially when they are questioning their perspective, that is an invaluable moment for you. It's a moment of vulnerability. They are opening up their worldview, their beliefs to you. They are willing to actually examine what they believe on like a metacognition level. Metacognition is like thinking about your thoughts. They are willing to actually not just hold their beliefs, but then go one level higher and examine their beliefs. That is actually like a very high level of consciousness right there. So when you come in at this lower level of reactivity, and you're just trying to tear them down and basically slap away their hand when they go to, go for a handshake, when they want to dialogue with you, what do you think is going to happen? It's not going to go good. And you may think this isn't you because you're probably generally a little bit more subtle than this, but I think we can all do this a lot. Here's a really small example that you probably do already. Eye contact, active listening. Think about this and be honest. In a conversation, are you actually trying to understand what the other person has to say, or are you just waiting for your moment to speak? Are you just kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah. Here's a little challenge I have for you. Next time you're in a conversation, you are not allowed to speak unless they are totally finished speaking. At which point, you have to ask them 3 questions before you are allowed to state your perspective. The mindset that I'm trying to get you into is one of trying to understand the person's perspective deeply. Listening is 10 times more persuasive than speaking. People want to be heard, man. And people aren't dummies either. They know when you're actually paying attention to them. I remember one time I was in Scotland and me and one of my friends were on a train. We were about to go on a hike and we were just kind of talking about like politics in the world and stuff. And I decided, you know what? I'm not going to try to insert myself here. Because for once, I'm not in my own head. I'm in front of another human being. And the most interesting thing I could do in this moment is not just spout my own opinion, but try and figure out what she actually thinks. Try and kind of, get into her world a little bit. That could be interesting. And at the end of the conversation, she said something to the effect of like, I really enjoy talking to you. I can tell that you actually care what I have to say. And that was like a lifelong friendship there, that we just started to form in that moment because I took the time to actually listen to somebody for once. Being able to understand another person's perspective that you don't agree with is so valuable. Most people don't have that skill. And if you can develop it, it's like a superpower, man, I swear. Here's what happens when that goes wrong.
Nice.
That micro expression, that laugh, that is the seed of hatred being planted. And honestly, can we even blame her for it? They're closed off because they can see that you are closed off.
Everyone has the opportunity for success.
I'm sure every one of us has sat in a restaurant before or a Starbucks. Those people work their asses off. Any of these low-income jobs are not easy, and they work for pennies. If something goes wrong with their car, they're done. If they have a health problem, they're done.
You're talking about financial success, though. Success is extremely relative and can be defined in many different ways.
In a capitalist society, that wasn't financial success the most important thing.
That was pretty good, I think, because he's passionate. He clearly cares, but he can articulate his position in a way that doesn't come off as preachy. And it's hard to put our finger on because it's not a logical difference. It's an emotionally, qualitatively different approach that he's taking.
Society should help the underprivileged.
Every example you guys have brought up has been specifically about people who are particularly poor when most of the country is lower middle class and up. That's
That's not a fact. But
Okay, you cannot say that's not a fact. What that translates to on a subconscious level is basically just like, you're wrong. It's silly. That's like the easiest way to burn trust.
how about instead of spending the money on the military, how about putting those back into basic needs, healthcare, education, housing?
I agree. The government taking our taxpayer dollars and funneling it into, they're paying for things that the military explicitly says that they don't need. That's not, capitalism is about prices and transparency and choices. When the government takes our money and buys
This
it
is
because
actually an
they
example of
decide,
capitalism working.
that is not,
As
that
a
might be
system,
what you call capitalism, but when
it
I
has
come
to
here saying
accumulate.
I'm a capitalist, I'm not saying I'm in favor of that.
You have to figure out a way to say this stuff in a way that's not high and mighty. If you go in guns blazing on normal people who are just trying to have a casual conversation, that ain't gonna work.
Profit and ethics are opposing motives.
one must be paid slightly less than they are making in worth for a company for it to be worth it to hire them at all.
If you can't pay your employee the minimum amount of money that they need in order to live, you have no business being in business.
She literally just hit the nail on the head. One of the fundamental insights of Marxist theory is that exploitation, right? You have to pay the workers less, and then this guy comes in and just takes the ball, runs with it. That's a fumble right there. She just admitted to one of the main premises of socialist ideology. If you're actually present in a conversation, presence, by the way, along with empathy, probably one of the best ways to be persuasive. If you're actually paying attention to the other person, then you would recognize this as a massive opportunity for common ground. They are literally admitting they agree with you. But if you're internally focused versus externally focused, you will never recognize that. To wrap up the video, I'll just leave you with one thought. The alchemy that will transform the lump of lead of pure argument, pure logic into the gold of persuasion, mutual understanding, and productive conversation is your intention. Are you after the truth or do you want to win? Are you acting out of love or are you spitefully trying to own somebody else? These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves because it goes to a really deep core level. If you're having a hard time reaching people, it's because you are not leading with the right intentions. I'm not saying, love conquers all, we will just win because we have pure hearts, but I am saying that we cannot hope to win if we're not acting from the right place. If you want to persuade people, you have to understand them. And I think that starts with us actually knowing what we believe. It starts with us getting educated. Because I think a lot of the reason that people communicate in this unempathetic, reactive manner is deep down, your arguments are not as strong as you thought they were. If you want to be able to think through your beliefs on a deeper level, you've got to start reading. I put together a free reading guide that for my followers, the link is in the description. A better world is possible.